All right. So, Truett's not here. He prepped y'all, gave y'all enough time so you could plan on not being here, but you're here. I appreciate you for that. Just wanted to share with you something it's getting ever more increasingly hard for us on this planet to maintain our identity. So when we talk about identity in today's terms, like theft protection, identity theft protection, life lock, and all those things, we want to preserve who we are, who other people know we are, who our bank knows we are, so that we maintain good standings with all the facets of our life, our money, our possessions, all those things. People who are fraudulent don't work for what they can earn, want to take those things from us or prevent us from having those things. So the goal for tonight and our key points I want you to take away from this is what defines your identity? What does a hacker or the ultimate hacker, the enemy, want to take from us? And 3, how do we get our identity back after we feel it's been stolen from us? So what is identity? And identity, I was pretty shocked to find out there was a second point, and I want to point this out just to give some perspective for what the world we live in today is going to tell you. So the first definition was the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. The fact of it. The ultimate fact. The second one is a little bit more surprising that I disagree with. A close similarity or affinity. That contrasts fact. Fact is not similar. It is what it is. It's not an affinity. It's not something that's felt. It's something that is. So it is being who or what a person or thing is. So how do we identify? When we are meeting people, it's all about who we're talking about. If I talk about some random person that you've never met, don't know, and I just am talking to you about somebody, you're not going to know who I'm talking about. I could talk about somebody, oh no, they have red frame glasses and they have flow yellow shoes. You can look around the room and be like, who is that? There's nobody here with that identity, right? So the identifying factors for a human being is the very first identity given to anybody, and that's gender. That's something absolute, uncontrollable, first thing that happens in the womb. You can see it when you're walking up to a person, or at least it used to be a lot easier to do that, when you're walking up to somebody and know what the gender is of a person you're walking up to. And then you would introduce yourself. This is your name. You would let the person know the name. You'd expect to get the name from the person in front of you. One of the greatest things about names is their meaning and what it means to you. In the Bible, which is where we base all of our belief, every person in there, it makes it a very big point to tell you who people's names are and why. To be vulnerable to you, my name is Travis. It's a French name meaning traverse or cross over, to transition from one place to another, to cross over something. Why is it that? Why was I named Travis? Well, my dad really liked Texas history and wanted to name me after somebody who's famous for establishing Texas. So I know, and I can build my name off of that, and that integrity is something I can have encouragement from. Just a quick, can anybody else be vulnerable? And do you know what your name means? The definition of your name.
Means bean farm.
What?
My name means bean farm.
Your name means bean farm. Outstanding. Why were you given that name?
My mom thought it was a good name. She didn't know what it meant.
Didn't do the research.
No.
Awesome. That is cool. Anybody else? Your name means beautiful. Is it Belle? No, what is it? Malihe? Okay. And why were you given that name? Because it's beautiful. Awesome.
I just searched it up. Madison means the son of Matthew.
Madison's the son of Matthew. Offspring of Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The reason I was saying that was because of the movie Splash. Her name.
Okay. Those are great. So we're going to go into identified. Establishing identity is important for knowing who we are talking about. Often when we meet people, we can tell gender, like I said. The first form of identification is from the womb. That is your sex. Another identifier is when we meet somebody, we get their name, and we also like to know, what is it that you do? Occupation, or for some of you, it's hobby. What clique do you fit into? Where can I find you on a Saturday? Where can I expect you? If it's volleyball, you're at the court. If it's on a field, you're playing a sport. Or if it's a game, or some of us are musicians, right? So we know where you're going to be, where we can find you, especially if you follow their social. So those are projected identifiers. And over time, you'll see those things change, and people will move into different identities of that nature, of what they enjoy, what they like, and those things can change. We're going to meet somebody whose name in the Bible, which Old Testament scripture is very poetic. And so as you can imagine, Job, his name means persecuted one. So whether the chicken or the egg came first, I don't know. But ultimately, we get to know this person as the persecuted one. But we're going to go into how the Bible defines and what God says about this individual. So starting in chapter 1, verse 1, it's the ultimate handshake right here. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. So we have, where are you from? Uz. Gender, man. His character is blameless, a fearer of God and a shunner of evil. So we have the person, the gender, the name, and the characteristics. What can we expect? What can we measure this man as we get to know him throughout his journey? So the other thing is, we have the person. What is his role? We go into verse 2. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. His role here, a father. In Job 1:3, we go into knowing somebody by their possessions. And he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. So now we know him by his possessions of owner, master, and his community title, what people other than himself know him as the greatest man among the people of the East. That's a huge identity this guy already has. So we get, when we're thinking about threats, if I wanted to take somebody's identity, if I wanted to attack somebody, Would I go after, say if I wanted someone's bank account, would I go just some random guy, or would I try to find the person that has the most money? The most identity. I would want to go get somebody with the most money, most identity. That's where I would want to go if I was wanting to gain something for myself and overcome somebody else and then bring possessions into myself. I wouldn't, what is it called? Petty theft, right? No, we want the whole enchilada here. So we have a target acquired. We start in verse 7, chapter 1. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan said to the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Satan's reply, he attacks his identity right to God and says, does he fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? Everything he has you blessed, the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand, strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. So what is the things he's going after? His possessions. The things that are actually attainable. Something that's not on the inside. He can go after his possessions, and he says, if you take the things that he perceives to put his identity in, he will no longer be himself, and he will no longer be upright, and he will curse you to your face. Lord says, very well, then everything he has is in your power. But on the man himself, do not lay a finger. And Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So that hedge of protection, that firewall around him gets breached. Verse 13, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine, at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job, said the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing, and the Sabeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you. Ouch. Another breach. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind from the desert struck the four corners. Pause. The four corners. We had a lot of winds lately. Everything's blown over in one direction, right? This is four different directions. Okay, this is very intentional, if you can imagine that. This thing caved in. Now, we've had possessions taken, things that he owns, right? Things that are making him money, oxen, camels, livestock, all of his income. That was breached, that was attacked. So as far as his occupation, at this point, being an owner of these things, he is not. What's another thing that we can say that we are? I can say, I'm a father. This spoke to me more than anything. I put a lot of intentionality into being a father. I put a lot of my identity in as my children's father and wanting to do the best for them. And a lot of that rides in that. What happens then if I put so much of my time, effort, and energy into that and it's taken away from me in a moment's notice? That was up until that point a controllable deal. I had complete control. If I put my identity in that, can fatherhood be taken away? That is something that can be taken away. So he's been hacked. He's lost everything, lost possessions, livestock, lost servants. after the possessions were lost, Satan took the people closest to him. So when we make our identities into boyfriends, girlfriends, we identify ourselves as husbands, wives, those are things that you can become. Those are things that can be added to you, but those things can be taken away from you as well. 120 is where we see a response of identity. Up to this point, we say, no, that guy's identity is gone, right? From a projection standpoint, when we're looking at his life from the outside, he has been hacked, he's done. At this, Job got up, tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell on the ground and worshiped. And said, naked I came in from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all of this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So the question is, has his identity been taken away? You're shaking your head, no. Why? When we go back to the original, it's blameless and upright, right? A fearer of God and a shunner of evil. That's what God said. God never said to Satan, go attack Job. He owns a lot of camels. Go attack Job. He's a father. Go attack Job. He's a husband. Well, he remains a husband the whole time, actually. Little tip for you. But all those things, God, I don't want to say he doesn't care about, because when we read on, you'll hear a different part of the story. But those things that are tangible, superficial, those can change at a moment's notice. At the end of the day, he remained in his identity. When God gives you an identity, nothing on the earth can take that away. No friend can tell you what you're going to be. No person. Your integrity is your identity. Who you are when all the chips fall, when the house crumbles, when your possessions are taken away, lost in a fire, whatever it may be. The last thing that you remain with when you're stripped naked of everything is what God says about you. That it was 2 weeks ago we went over that, right? I'm not I'm not what the world says I am. I'm not who I say I am. I'm who God says I am, right? So going back to that is the ultimate. Now, I haven't had to do this in a long time, but being a 90s kid and dealing with computers early on and going into places I'm not supposed to on the internet, you get a lot of viruses and it destroys and wrecks your computer. So those 80s, 90s people know what factory data reset means. God performs, so we skip forward. There's a lot more to the story. It's huge, it's vast, okay? But I want you to take away the very beginning of this and the very end of this. The factory data reset. The Lord blessed the later part of Job's life more than the former part. He ended up having 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, 1,000 donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The first daughter's name, Jemima, the second, Keziah, and the third, Karen Hapuch. Nowhere in all the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. After this, Job lived 140 years. He saw his children and their children to the 4th generation, and so Job died an old man full of years. So as easily as those things that we put our faith in can be taken away, they can come right back. There's never a rock bottom with God. So even if you do have a horrible house fire, horrible storm, horrible things happen. Not God happens, but horrible things happen because we live in a world that is very uncontrolled to a certain point, with free will nature, with other people, with storms and weather, and Satan. At the end of the day, the one thing that does not change is God and what God can do for you and what you can do for God. When Satan comes to attack, does he say, have you considered my servant Isaac? Is God pointing the finger at you and your uprightness? Does he know that about you? Flip the script and read that whole first part back and put your name, fill in that blank. Are you a shunner of evil and a fearer of God? That is a true identity. That can't be taken away by anybody. So the new target, what makes up your identity? That is your God-given uncontrollables: sex, race, species, nationality, and character. Those are uncontrollables. You can't control those. Those are the things that you need to be proud of. What the enemy's going to try to take from you is the man-made established additions from you. Economic stature, spousal role, parenthood, occupational role. What's untouchable, what he can't take, is those first parts: the sex, race, species, nationality. The attack on you today is going to come from all the above. You can expect it. As you grow, as you go out into the world, you can expect to see these things, identify these things. So what's the antivirus for you? What's your ultimate firewall? What's your blocker? How do you keep those things away from you? Ask why. Why is the best question for any circumstance when you're talking about letting things into your system. Ask why in every situation, your influences and your projections. Those are two things. Your influences are the things that you're allowing in to control and tell you what you need to be, who you need to be. And your projections, the way you tell the world who you are. Those projections are attitude, appearance, and behaviors. So whenever those things are coming to you and they're coming out of you, before you allow them to come into you or allow them to go out of you, ask yourself, why? Is this God or is this me? Is this going to lead me closer to God or is this going to strip my identity from God? So key points: what defines your identity? What does the enemy try to take away from us? And how do we get our identity back after we feel, keyword is feel, it's been taken from us? So we're going to go into groups. Can you take some? Kindle? Candy? Okay.